Good afternoon, everyone. Matt Feldhouse here for another episode of Caffeine Connect, where we sip coffee and talk business. This is our monthly series where founders and business leaders share their stories, insights, and expertise with our community. Our Patriot Bootcamp program is generously supported by T-Mobile, ESPN, and Veterans Debt Assistance. A big thanks to them for making this forum possible. Join us for real talk, actionable advice, and inspiration to fuel your business journey. Today, we are joined by Dr. Ariel Jordan. Dr. Jordan is an entrepreneur, a resilience coach, and a friend to DAV, and also a mentor at Patriot Bootcamp. After my brief introduction, Dr. Jordan will take the lead. I invite you to write any questions you have into the forum section or post those on socials. We'll make sure to save plenty of time at the end for Q&A. All right, let's get into it.
All
Dr.
right.
Ariel Jordan is a PhD LCPC. She is also an Army veteran, a licensed trauma therapist, and founder of Mindset Quality and Mission Redefine. She equips organizations, leaders, and purpose-driven teams with practical tools to strengthen mental fitness, navigate stress, and she leads with clarity. Through workshops, retreats, intensives, and keynotes, Dr. Jordan helps groups translate resilience into better communication, stronger decision-making, and sustainable growth. Known for blending science, cultural awareness, and lived experience, she delivers strategies that audiences can apply immediately in both business and life. You can learn more at her at bio.arieljordan.com. And I will say, Dr. Jordan, at the end of the year, what better topic to end the year with than
Right.
mental health? I am so excited for this. Mental health, resilience. This is great. I can't wait.
I love it. I know that we've had conversations offline about like how important this is. And I think at the end of the year, even better, like let's regroup and kind of have a better Q1 is what I was thinking.
I love that. Amen to that. And the floor is yours. I can't wait.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen so I can have some visuals going on. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, ma'am. I see him.
Awesome. Okay. So, welcome everybody. I am super casual. I will take questions as we go. So if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I will not be looking at the chat because I cannot multifunction like that, but Matt is gonna give us the questions if they come up. Um, Today, we're looking at resilience through a mental fitness lens. So, especially for mission driven leaders do so much for everybody else and their business. And it's so important that we kind of take a moment to look at ourselves internally. So, it's not a conversation about fixing you or telling you to slow down. It's more about optimizing those internal systems that allow you to be a great leader, to function at that high level that you function at. So everything that we covered today is practical, it's research, it's adaptable to how you operate. So the mission today is just to learn, to reset, to regulate, and to take a tool with you. So my hope for you is that you kind of think about how you're already operating and what you can take with you and what you need to leave behind. So this hopefully will take you on that journey. Okay. So before we talk strategy, we need to talk about the reality. Military entrepreneurs operate with layered pressure. So you have the adaptability, you have the discipline, you have the mission focus. You also inherited a performance wiring that's like built for high stakes environments. So all of us have that if we're veteran entrepreneurs. Um, Now it looks a little bit different. So when you move into your business, there's constant decisions that need to be made, financial responsibility, team leadership, uncertainty, growth targets, and all of this is coming at you typically all at once. So there's usually a heavy load that each person is carrying. And we can pretty much assume that any person that you come across that's a leader has a heavy load on them. So mental fitness will give you that stability underneath that load by strengthening your clarity, your decision making, and your recovery. But we can't do that without talking about like the pause, and we have to pause on purpose. I was talking with someone um, last week, and they were talking about feeling very overwhelmed. And so we started to get into like why. And the load is heavy, and they're stressed, and they're not really doing much for themselves because they can't. They have all these different roles that they play. And so we talked about what were they doing to kind of take like little mini breaks, but their thought process was that if I take a break, then that's an interruption. And so a lot of us have that thought process, like if I take a break, it's an interruption. But really, if we take a break, like if I'm working this long hours and I take a break and go get some water and walk outside for a minute, typically my brain is going to work better when I come back and sit down, and I still will be able to complete what I need to complete. So when the load is heavy, it's not to not take a break. And so I think we think the load is heavy, I got to keep tackling it. There's only a certain amount of hours in the day, which is very true. However, if I take a break, I might actually function better. So it's just kind of like challenging your brain to look at what we're doing that's working and what we're doing, what we could do a little bit better. So that brings me to resilience. So I want to challenge your thinking a little bit. The old definition versus the new. So the old is more like endure. We gotta push through. And although we're probably very good at that, I want to challenge you to tweak it a little bit. The new definition can be to sustain your system, to regulate, to adapt. So a lot of the resilience that we learned was designed around short-term missions. So you push through, you make it work, and you move on. And that's just how the model is. But it's built for a different context. So when we're entering entrepreneurship, excuse me, entrepreneurship, it requires long-term performance. So if we're talking about our businesses, if you're in the first year, if you're in the 10th year, it doesn't really matter. That is how long you're going to perform. Most people don't start a business thinking that they're going to fail or that they only want to do it for a short amount of time. So we're talking about long term here. So when we shift from just endurance alone, then we can move into a system where we are regulated and where we can adapt. Part of entrepreneurship is that pivot. So we're going to come across a time where we need to pivot. And if we're not thinking clearly, we might pivot out of desperation or failure or fear of failure. And we don't want to do that. So we want to be thinking about, okay, I mean, yes, we still need to push through to a certain extent, but how do I sustain? Because that's how we're going to keep moving forward. That's how we're going to grow in a way that is healthy. So I love to say that resilience is rhythm. A lot of people have ups and downs, as we know, as business owners as well. If you've ever had a startup or thinking about a startup or had a failure, like we know that there's ups and downs that comes with this process. It's just how it goes. And so how we reset um, is where mental fitness begins. So resilience is rhythm. Try not to say balance that often because we're trying to like achieve balance, and I feel like it's not achievable sometimes as business owners. All the roles that we play in our life, we are going to demand something from us, and we won't always get it right. But if we think about it as a rhythm, usually if you look at the like rhythm, it goes up and down. That's our lives. It goes up and down. Sometimes we'll be up, sometimes we'll be down. So when we're thinking about like nervous system stuff, it requires clarity. It requires patience, and that's how we make good decisions. So, and that's like your physiology. It's not personality. So we need that. When your system is supported, your performance improves. So when we think about the tools, I came up with 3 R's: the reset, the refocus, and the reconnect. Those are the things that are going to help you as you're thinking about, okay, so I learned to push through. I always push through. I never take breaks. I am very intense. How do I stop doing that? And these are the ways that you stop doing that. You figure out how to reset, refocus, and reconnect. Some of the things that we talk about with reset, go to my next slide here. There we go. Some of the things that we talk about with reset, we're talking about supporting the system so that you can think clearly. And that includes a consistent sleep window. So I don't know how many of us out here get that good sleep that we need. Most people don't. But it's encouraged to like get more of it. So maybe we can't get the sleep for whatever reason. It could be health issues. It could be just overactive brain or whatever type of struggles that we have, but just knowing the importance of sleep. So maybe prioritizing that a little bit more. I don't want to like have a real intense workout before I go to bed because that's gonna mess with my system. So whatever like you need to think about for your sleep window, like as you start to end your day, are you like turning the lights down? Are you having less screen time? Um, Anything that's gonna like stabilize. We can't stop the car at 70 miles per hour, right? We have to slow it down to a stop. So think about your body doing that. Think about your brain doing that. At the end of the day, I need to bring it down. I need to rest. Another part of that is movement. So when we're thinking about throughout the day, I sit at a desk most of the day, and every hour on the hour, I try to get up, move around. I drink a lot of water so that I have to get up and move around if I forget. And I don't move every hour in the hour. I know I'm gonna have to get up, use the restroom. So whatever you can incorporate that incorporates some movement is good. Taking a walk. I have a little dog. He's got to go to the bathroom. So I work from home. I'm taking him out. We're getting some fresh air. So these kind of decisions are going to help you. And then the decision breathing is when you're thinking about like a major decision, you want to be able to breathe through that. So it's a micro thing that we can do, but sometimes we kind of sleep on those little things. So taking a big breath before you respond can really help a lot of people think about what place I want to come from as I respond. I always tell people there are 3 different ways that we can respond. We can respond from the version who we used to be, the version that we are, or the version that we're becoming. And all of them exist and they all matter, but it's a constant choice that we have to make. And so taking that breath before you do that can make things flow a lot better. So, for example, if I have a challenge that comes up and I'm thinking about my first like reaction, let's say it's negative, I have to think about how I'm going to respond to that. So if I take that breath, I can think, okay, well, normally I would respond this way, but that's probably not the way I want to respond. And then I can think about where I'm trying to go. So if I'm trying to go here, all right, here's how I need to respond. So I might think about it and I might respond in a better way. So that is just taking those deep breaths. There's different ways that you can do it, but the most important thing is like when you're trying to calm or reset, is that your exhale is longer than your inhale. So when you take a breath, you want to breathe out very slowly, and then you make that decision. When you operate from a calm place, you will see better decision making. So that's the reset. So the next part is the refocus. So this is where you can kind of bring in like some stuff that you learned from the military, right? We always do that AAR after all of our trainings and just kind of like check in to see how it's going. We're kind of doing that now. Hopefully you're thinking about, your year and what went well and what you learned and what you can improve. That should, start with the clarity, right? That's how clarity begins. So refocus shapes how you move through the challenges. Leaders without a refocus system, they tend to carry unnecessary mental weight because the brain fills in gaps with like threat-based assumptions. So when you refocus, it gives you structure. So the same thing happens um, if you see yourself like responding to something and you don't really get why you're responding that way, or you feel like just super overwhelmed or triggered, usually if you're not pausing, that's just going to add up. You're just going to stack on top of that. So when you do the reset, that should, where you take a breath or where you move your body or, whatever you choose to do, now you got to refocus. What is going on? What happened? Right. So maybe I made a bad decision. Maybe I lost a contract. Maybe somebody said no that I thought was a really, it was a go, but I realized it wasn't. I had to figure out, take a breath, figure out what happened. Okay, what did I learn? What can I do better next time? What's the next rep here? So we're not minimizing difficulty here. We're just like extracting something that's useful to our situation and it doesn't drain our energy. Because if we never do this, then the things are going to keep stacking. And then we're going to feel so super overwhelmed and we probably aren't going to make decisions that are good. Some people will wonder, like, when I get home, oh my gosh, I snapped at my kid and they didn't even really do anything, or they'll realize like, oh, after I started to like reset and refocus, I started to reconnect with my family in a way that I didn't even know. I started playfulness. I started to play a little bit more or things like that. So that's why it's important to kind of do these steps so that we can come off more grounded. And it's also just make it part of your strategy. So it's just like a normal thing. So some people do this already, but just to give you a little bit of structure to think about, okay, how am I going to do this for myself? And then the last one is reconnect. So leadership isn't built alone. And I always say to people, when you were in the military, typically you had a battle buddy, and you better know where this battle buddy is at. If you go to the bathroom, they're probably coming with you. If you don't know where they're at, you're probably going to get in trouble. So you want to think about like that skill that they're building, right? Like you're not doing anything alone. But then we get out and, we have life thrown at us. And all of a sudden, we think we're supposed to like do everything alone. And that doesn't really work. So you have in the military where support was built into the structure. In entrepreneurship, you have to design it yourself. So reconnection isn't about like leaning on people because you're struggling. It's not a weakness. It's about like reinforcing your capacity through collaboration, through perspective, through regulation. So when you think about your support architecture, it should include some of these that I've listed on the screen. Like you could have a peer founder that you guys can have honest conversations with. You could have a mentor that has a broader vision, which Patriot Bootcamp does a really nice job with. I have found a couple people that are like really wonderful that have this broader vision that I've never thought about. And so they changed my way of thinking. So didn't know that I could even think that big. That's how cool it is to sometimes, find your person, your mentor. A personal anchor. I usually have my best friends. I will call them and use their support when I need it. And then also a professional support or coach or therapist. Those people can help you move forward in ways as well that you might not have seen. So this is about creating conditions that support your long-term performance. So when you think about your support system, what does it actually look like? Are you trying to do it alone? And if you're trying to do it alone, do you feel stressed? Because you're not really supposed to do it alone when you're an entrepreneur. We all need each other. So those are the three R's. And I wanted to challenge you to think about that in a different way. So reset, refocus, reconnect. We already talked about what that means. So now turn it into a system that you can maintain. So you're going to choose one reset habit that supports your body. That could be any of the things that we talked about or anything that you are already doing that works, but it could be just moving your body or taking a breath. Research supports that this will help you to reset. So think about it. What's your thing? If you want to, write it down. Refocus. So this is supporting your mindset. Where do you need to refocus? And as we're ending this year, it is a perfect time to think about where we can refocus. I read this book called The 12-Week Year, and I don't follow it like the book says, but I love the way that they presented the 12-week year because we can structure our thoughts a little bit better. We can focus it a little bit better. We have a ton of goals to accomplish, but really we can only do, we're better when we do one thing at a time. So that book challenges you to think about your year in 12 weeks and what you will accomplish. So I like that because it helps with my refocus process. So if you have things like that that help you get your focus back, use it. But that's what's going to support your mindset. So for me, that book is a great example. Whenever I get overwhelmed and I'm doing too much, I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me take a breath. Okay. I'm doing too much. That's why I feel overwhelmed. I have this role, that role, and I need to kind of listen to what's happening here. I feel stressed. So I'm gonna go do those things like prioritizing my sleep, moving my body, making sure I'm getting enough water, basic needs, right? But also, what do I need to refocus on? And usually I will kind of shift my schedule a bit to do that. Choose one, reconnect. One, reconnect, make it an action that reinforces your structure. So if we're thinking about our team, uh, who do we need to kind of reach out to, or what is going to support the structure that I'm building here? Do I need a coach? Do I need to seek a therapist to get a therapy session? Do I need to check in? And just kind of think about what you need. Simple is better. Um, sustainable is better. So you're going to document your plan. That's why I wrote it out like this. Mental fitness becomes part of your operational rhythm and not an afterthought. So this is very short, simple, to the point. So even if you had like a sticky note, you could write down like, what can I do to reset? What do I need to refocus on? And how can I reconnect? I'm feeling kind of lonely in my entrepreneurship. Maybe I need a coach. Maybe I need to talk to a peer. Oh, I know so and so has this business. Maybe I'll reach out to them and see how they're doing and just talk about our struggles or our challenges together, what we could do better. So I challenge you to do that. And that's what's going to help you kind of build that sustainable mental fitness as you go forward into Q1. So to sum it up, system beats willpower. We can, want to have great mental health all day, but as an entrepreneur, we do need a system. We do need to intentionally pause. Those kind of things will help you. Rhythm beats intensity, so we don't need to go, 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 even though most of us do go, go, go. Think about how you can implement some of this stuff into your rhythm. It's not an interruption. It is part of the process. So if when you begin to think that way, what changes? And then going back to the 3 points, reset, refocus, and reconnect. It's not about doing more. It's about leading stronger. And so you have a better foundation. These 3 pillars will strengthen your capacity, it will protect your mission, and it will support your longevity as a leader. So now we can move into the Q&A. And yeah, any questions that came up, I thought you would interrupt me, Matt. So I
Oh,
forget
you were in
everything.
the flow. You were in the flow. I didn't want to
To the
interrupt,
flow,
but
okay.
I do have I have something I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So, you know, many of the people listening might be founders, who also might be husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, etc.
Yep.
Life gets busy, and when you're in a time like this in a safe space, it's thinking, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to set aside time to breathe. But then life happens and you get in the moment and you forget. Are there some tools or recommendations you can use, maybe an app on our phone that can help remind us to take that breath, to take those moments that we need, and or whatever it might be? I'm just trying to think of tools that you've used or you're familiar with that could help us.
Yeah, so my favorite tool, I love free tools, y'all. So my favorite tool, my favorite tool is YouTube, because you can type in like whatever you want, and usually somebody has done it already. So even for myself, I started to do like sometimes like on my TikTok or something, I would do like a 1 minute loving kindness meditation or something like that. And I would get feedback like, thank you for this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's really cool. A lot of people have tools online. I have found yoga instructors online where I can sit and do a 10-15 minute stretch because I only have 10 to 15 minutes. Like literally I will type in 10-minute whatever, and then that way my time is structured, but also I'm getting what I need. I want to stretch my body. I only got 5 minutes. Boom, 5 minute yoga stretch, and it will come up. Um, I do a loving kindness meditation with people a lot because I think we forget that as like caregivers, as all the roles that we play. We forget to bring it back to self. And a lot of times we struggle with that. And it's like, how do you do that? And um, if you don't want to like do it yourself, you can go to that like YouTube resource and type that in. What is a loving kindness meditation? I only got 5 minutes. Let's do this. And it will reset. Like you'll start to think differently because you went there. Talking about apps, the what was it? Calm app. I used to use that one because it has like rain sounds and stuff like that. I honestly I don't like paying for tools. So if I could find it for free, I will. Breathwork apps and things like that can be helpful. Even your calendar app, set a reminder, put it in your calendar to take a breath or set an alarm or something like that, you know. And so that's a way that you can help yourself kind of remember because it is something you have to train your brain to do. We don't, especially like if you've been in the military, you don't just take breaks and have a lot of leisure most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And no, I love the fact that you said about the calendar and the usage of that, because I'm just gonna no, doesn't matter either way. Samsung, iPhone. I have an iPhone, and there's a thing that you could use with that, or location-based notifications. So it's like when you get to the
Mhm.
office, you can mark it that like work is at this address. When I get there, send me this reminder. And it could be
Cool.
like take a deep breath or whatever. When you get home,
I like
reminder,
that.
do these. So those are some of the things that, like I've used in the past. I'm a big breath work guy. So when you mentioned that,
Yeah.
my brain goes to Wim Hof.
Ooh.
You can look up his stuff on YouTube. He's a
Hmm.
very interesting guy, big
Okay.
fan. But his breath stuff, I did it during COVID, a very high stress. I think a lot of us can relate to that. But
Hmm.
I really enjoyed utilizing that, and I think breath work is a great tool. Here's a question coming from someone. So, how do you notice the difference between leading from survival and then leading from purpose. And I'm sure those can maybe feel intertwined at different times.
Yeah, leading from survival versus leading from purpose. That was the question. Okay. Like knowing the difference, right?
Exactly. Or
Oh,
yes, I believe.
gotcha. Okay. So, okay, that's a solid question for sure. Most leaders don't realize that they have crossed that line. So, because you still look productive and you still hit the goal and you still execute at a high level and you're operating from survival mode without even noticing it. So, it's like the urgency that shows up though. It's the uh don't go to the bathroom because you're completing this task right now. It's that like I'm ignoring my basic needs to complete this task. That's it's not sustainable, right? If I keep doing that, there's going to be an issue or the urgency that doesn't match the situation. So I have shorter patience. I'm making decisions faster than I'm thinking and having clarity. Like those are the kind of things that you notice when you're in survival mode or your system is overloaded. So that's when you want that grounding, that breath, those type of things, because your nervous system prioritizes speed and protection, not strategy or innovation. So when you're leading, you're like leading, but you're in a restricted range here. So you want to kind of get a grasp on that. Purpose shows up as choices instead of reactions. So if you ever feel like that helplessness, like I don't have a choice, that's not really true a lot of the time. It's like if I take a breath and I realize what's happening and I realize what kind of choices am I making? What am I tolerating? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? And kind of ask myself those grounding questions. I can still move quickly and deliberately, but I'm pulling back out and I'm like, okay, I don't feel threatened by this. Okay, so yeah, this might be a good way to move. My nervous system is regulated enough to think about the long game. I'm not thinking about like I just need to get to next week. And sometimes it happens, but managing it is what the goal would be for that.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
This is something I'm thinking, and so I'm putting on my old trainer hat.
Hmm.
And when I would work with a new client, a lot of the times I think in fitness, goals are about a number.
Hmm.
It's they want to often it's to lose a weight.
Hmm.
And typically when someone starts a new plan, starts a new regiment, the weight isn't that number isn't always the first thing that will change. It
Hmm.
might take some time, especially if they're building muscle, muscle weighs more
Yes.
than fat, etc. So I would have them
Hmm.
focus on other indicators that there's progress because
Yeah.
it is tough if you're working on something for 2, 3, 4 weeks and you don't see that number change, it can be really tough. So
Absolutely.
in fitness, I would have people like, do you get less out of breath when you go up the stairs? When you're
Mhm.
holding your son or daughter, when you're carrying in groceries, can you do more weight on an exercise,
Yep.
etc.? I'm
Yep.
curious, what would progress look like for someone that's trying to integrate some of these practices regarding mental health and resilience? Are there any indicators like, oh, I am getting a little bit, stronger and more resilient or whatever? Or is
Mhm.
there anything that you could, help someone pick out?
Absolutely. I think that most people don't notice the drop until they're in like that deep overload. And so, there's indicators for that where you're like, we notice like we're reading all the emails or rereading them or double checking simple tasks and stuff like that. But on the other side, it's like you stop doing some of that stuff. So when you start to move forward, maybe you notice like I'm prioritizing that I have a lunch break. I'm prioritizing that I stop for an hour to go do something for myself. And maybe I wouldn't have done that before. Or it could be as simple as people are demanding so much of my time, but I said no to this one thing because I just didn't have it in me to do. Or I wasn't willing to do it. And I realized that it was going to take too much from me. So I said no. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, that's different. You said no to something? Okay. Or just like my reaction would normally be this, but instead I realized instead of getting angry, it's just not worth my time. That's their problem, not mine. So I didn't take that on. So you notice like different decision making, making it from a calm place. Like, okay, I thought about it and I said no, not out of like spite or trying to get them back or anything like that. I just said no because I'm tired. So I'm going to prioritize my rest today. So it looks a little bit different.
Right. And I wonder like could one still keep maybe document of that, like maybe a journal of their,
Yeah.
mental health journal or whatever of like, hey, today I stuck my boundary. I didn't do this or I responded in this way or whatever so that they can maybe see, oh man, this week I had five of those. Next week I had like eight of those and they could see
Mhm.
that growth and reflect back on it or something like that.
Yeah, and I recommend that too because it doesn't have to be like a long drawn out journal entry. Literally, you could write like a bullet point for the day. And what did I do well? Or do that AAR, right? Like what happened? What went well? What didn't go well?
Yeah.
What did I hope to accomplish? Maybe what did I not accomplish? What do I need to learn from this? But what happens is your record to yourself means way more. Like, so I'm a mental health therapist. I can tell people all day, you're doing a great job. I see this, that, and that happening. But if they notice it themselves, that impact is way bigger than if I tell them that. So I might ask questions like, you know, what did you notice like throughout the week? What's different from last week to this week? I'm having them think about it, and then they're telling me. And so I'll listen and I'll say, wow, wait a minute, let's stop we'll stop right here. Um, so you said that you told somebody no? And we'll laugh about it and we'll make it we'll make it funny, but it's like, what? I did make a different decision this week. Wow, that is different. So for them to realize it is better than me telling them. And so your journal can do that. If I write bullet points all week. And then I go back on Sunday and I look and I'll say, oh, okay, well, I started off with only one good thing where I noticed I took a breath. But by Friday, I noticed I went to the gym, I drank water all day, whatever the simple things are. And I can celebrate those wins.
Damn, that's awesome. And I want to share some feedback from the chat that or the Q&A that I know you don't get to see. And so as we were chatting, Rashida mentioned, "Hey, I'm a spiritual leader. Just want to say I love everything you shared, and I've learned some new things, such as differences between resetting and balancing." And system beats willpower. Semper Fidelis, steady on. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure Dr. Jordan does as well. And then here's another one.
Thank
As
you.
a life member of DAV, I just want to say thank you. I say it as well. Thank you for providing this valuable information that aids in leadership.
Mhm.
This person is a vet. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it. I'm a veteran of both U.S. Air Force Reserves and U.S. Army Reserves. Rock on. We appreciate that. Let's see. Here's another one. This came from our socials. Having PTSD, I have a steps to set my day, week, and more important for me is
Mhm.
having a supportive circle of people that are there to give what you need, not what you want. Life dies through your monkey. Life does throw you monkey wrenches, but being
Mhm.
resilient is what gets me through. Amen to that. Uh,
Absolutely.
and then here's another one from Jimmy. I watch Motiversity on YouTube. I have it playing in the background. Not everything sinks in, but every so often a phrase or speaker will create a spark to keep me going or to get me going. I'm assuming that's in comment about some of the apps and technology that we were talking about. So thank you, Jimmy, from LinkedIn. We appreciate that. Um, let's see. Any other questions, comments that I need to? Okay, here's one. Um, Okay, this is just asking, Dr. Jordan, what is one small habit you could change this week that would create more clarity or calm for you?
For myself,
Yeah, or
um,
or you can do it on
let's
behalf of
see.
like the general person. What is one thing that
Yeah,
they might not think of? Because I think,
I
you
like
know, we could take a step back and take a breath, but so we're going to remove taking a breath. I'll make it
that.
harder on you.
Um, well, I mean, I'll tell you something like I did. yesterday I had like so much in my head that I was like, I have to get it out. So I did actually like go to my journal and just sit, and I set a timer for 10 minutes because I didn't have a lot of time. But I set a timer and I felt so much better after doing that. And I was just like, okay, maybe I need to do more of this because that felt really nice. Other times when that loving kindness meditation I mentioned, I love that thing. I mean, it's so cool to like listen to. It takes you, it says, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live in peace no matter what is given to me. And it's just like a saying, but when you sit in it, it feels different. And then you offer it to other people. You offer it to mentally, you offer it to your support system, you offer it to somebody that might be a little bit difficult for you to deal with, and you're just sending out love and kindness. But it changes the way that we think. It's more of I'm an inclusion in everything that I take care of. Me too. And that settles a little bit different. So then I can move on from the next thing, and I'm not helpless, I'm not defeated or anything like that. I just gave myself love and kindness as well as the world, and I feel much better. I can move on from that, and that takes 10 minutes.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm going to ask the group. So we have, an audience right now. If you're listening, what is, what is something right now in your leadership that is keeping you up? What is something that you wanted to work through or giving you discomfort in your leadership position? As we have a candid audience right now, we can talk through some of this stuff. I'll say
Love that.
something of my own is when there's a lot of unknowns.
Hmm.
But I think going back, just also answering my own question, if it's okay, is I think, life is going to always give you unknowns. Like that is life. It is a huge unknown. Every day we wake up and we don't really know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
whether it's weather, people come out sick, whatever it would be, is just having that positive self-efficacy of whatever is going to happen, whatever life does throw at me, I'm going to get through it.
Yep.
And that's where I love that triad of mental, physical, and emotional wellness or
Hmm.
spiritual wellness. If you're strong in all those areas and you work at that, you can get whatever life throws at you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and it takes practice.
you made me think about this term radical acceptance. Like
Mm,
I, radical acceptance is so, so powerful. It comes from dialectic behavior therapy. And it means that dialectic itself means that two things can be true. And when we think about it, radical acceptance, I don't have to like it or condone it, but I do have to accept reality. And so when we're grieving, when we're going through these hard things, it's not that those things are not true. Like they're true. I don't have to like it or condone it, but I do have to accept that it's happening to
mm,
me. And that's when I can start to make changes. But if I am stuck in like misery, like or suffering, like okay, I'm just going to use this an example that I've came across this week. I lost a contract, not for myself, but somebody that I work with. They lost a contract. So I lost a contract, and I can keep dwelling on the loss, right? It's gonna sting, it's gonna hurt. So that's, we're not dismissing that, and I'm recognizing that, but also it really happened. So because this happened, what's next? And that's what made me think about the reset, the refocus, and the reconnect, right? Because I got to reset after that. That was a blow. Okay, so let's do that. And then what's the next focus? Because if I keep looking at this contract that I lost, I'm not really looking at new ones that I can get, right? So it's a process. And then I can reconnect. Okay, who do I need to talk to make this shift happen? Or who do I need to talk to get this out? We're not liking it or condoning it. That's the main point. And that allows us to suffer a little bit less because then we move forward. We start to problem solve in a way that is healthy, not avoidance. So it's
yeah.
just that radical acceptance. I don't necessarily like what's going on. Life is happening. Life is lifing. All right, what can I do next?
Yeah.
Because it's lifing. Hmm.
I appreciate that. Okay. So
Hmm.
reading another comment here that came in or a question that came in. Um, Dr. Jordan, what do you think about narrative therapy?
I love it. I love narrative therapy. There's so many different ways to move forward. Um, Narrative therapy, it has some some specialties of like the story, right? And so you can rewrite your narrative. So if we're thinking of what our narrative is, what our script is that we have right now, and it's maybe like negative, then what else does it need to look like? And we can start to think about it that way. It basically says we don't just live through events. There's a story. And all of us have a story. When we think about like our why and why we even created this business, or why we continue to work on our business and grow, or what we need to do, like all of that stuff. And our story influences how we lead. It influences how we respond and how we see ourselves. And so if we're starting to add an empowering narrative to that, it's like, oh, wait a minute. And that's what mentors can do for you. That's what therapy can do for you. That's what programs like Patriot Boot Camp can do for you. It changes your narrative a bit more. If your narrative is, I'm not smart enough, I don't have enough knowledge, I don't have enough community, let's change that. It doesn't mean that that's not true. Like you might really feel that way, but also, what are we doing about it? And what is the next step? And I think that's where that narrative therapy can be very helpful.
I love that. I love that. Um, I'm just so glad we got to end the year with, so much has happened in the
Yeah.
world and everything going on in each other's lives. It's crazy to think we all have our own set of things going on, but in the end, we're sharing in that life experience. We all have our
Mhm.
things that we struggle with, that we're hopeful for, that we're anxious about, etc. They're just very human feelings and emotions. So to end the year on something like mental health and resilience, I love that because I
Yeah.
think it's great to, recap the year like you said, do that check-in, see what you need to let go, and maybe even see what you need to carry on though to
Yeah,
2026 as well. So
absolutely.
I invite everyone listening. I hope, you listened, you paid attention, take your notes like I was doing, because I'm a big proponent that mental health, just like your physical health, is something that you can practice and work on and improve. Just like if when we were doing push-ups in the military, there are breath work and these things that you can do to strengthen your mental health as well. And as founders or friends of DAV, whoever's listening, we're here to support you. And in that support, transitioning, registration is actually open. It's been open for our winter cohort. Where can you find that, you might ask? That is patriotbootcamp.org. And we are going to be taking it to sunny Myrtle Beach. Hopefully, it's going to be sunny. That is February 11th to 13th. It's going to be a beautiful event. We're really excited to have you. You can find that again on that website. We're excited also for these Caffeine Connects. They are going to continue in 2026. And if you want to track down dates, presenters, or anything like that, if you go to that website, which again is patriotbootcamp.org, in the top right, you're going to see a little tab there that says Join Our Community. That's going to allow you to subscribe to our newsletter, and you're going to get all of these updates sent to you so you can stay on top of the next time we have a topic that you're interested in. So, Dr. Jordan, I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your wisdom, sharing your experience, sharing your heart with us. For everyone listening, we appreciate you.